On today's episode of the Project 930, it gets a coilover conversion. So why the reason to go to coilovers over a torsion bar setup? Well, truth be told, I want easy and quick height adjustment, which is why I went with these KW coilovers. This is actually a new offering from them. It's called the Classic Porsche lineup, and the reason it's being offered is before you could not get a coilover that had the front spindle built into it. And KW's gone ahead and started casting these now and building them onto their coilovers. So this is the probably best solution on the market. There's a couple other companies that do this, but require you to reuse your old spindle, which, trust me, I've looked into, is not a cheap option. So let me get back to the actual torsion bar system on the Porsche right now and why it's kind of hard to adjust ride height on it. It's a simple setup. It has a shock for the dampening, and in here there is a torsion bar. So the bar itself connects to the arm, which is a pivot, and the bar acts kind of as a spring, so it rotates, which dictates ride height, and that's really hard to adjust with this setup. Anyways, what I'm gonna do is have to remove this and get rid of the torsion bar to install the coilover so that this arm moves up and down freely. So without further ado, let's get started on this and see how I make out. To remove the shock is actually one bolt on the bottom, one bolt up top, so it makes for an easy job. Go. Already loosened the bolt up top, so it makes for such an easy removal. As you can see, this shock looks in somewhat decent shape. It's pretty old, but still works. For me to get at the torsion bar, I'm going to have to remove this pivot arm here, which has two bolts that are actually for caster adjustment, and then these two right here, which will allow me to remove this entire arm. So let's get to it, and let's see if I can pop this bad boy off nice and quick. And there we go. So the issue here is my torsion bar is coming off with the pivot arm. On the opposite side that I've done already, the arm came off with the torsion bar being stuck inside. So now I've got to try to weasel this off, and then we can slide the torsion bar out. Nope. I think the clear solution is just to bust out the cutting wheel and chop it, because, well, I don't really need the torsion bar anymore since I'm going into a coilover setup, and for me to beat around the bush here and try to pull this out, well, as you put it, Dave, I think it would be a pain in the dick. So let's just chop this.
All right.
Even though I know the Porsche purists will be like, oh no, you're ruining a torsion bar. For the classic sense and the originality, I say, screw it. There goes my cutting disc, but there we go. Now I'm gonna either have to pull this out or just leave it in, but let's see if I can pull the other side out here and show you what it looks like. Yeah. So this is 3/4 of a torsion bar here. Yes. All right. So now it's time to put this back in and then install the coilover, and we can move up front. Everything's buttoned up here on the torsion bar arm, sans the torsion bar, of course. So it's time to move on to putting the actual coilover in. Shouldn't be too difficult a job, because it's one bolt in the bottom. However, I'm gonna struggle here to get it through the, struggling to get it in the hole, you know?
Story of your life, PT.
There we go, now it's in there. Oh, coilover up, right on. Up top here, I just gotta slide the bushing on, then the metal sleeve that KW supplies, and the nut, and we are officially done back here.
Might want to torque that down, PT.
Nah, it's loose. That's the way the internet told me. Just leave it loose. If the install in the back was easy, this one up front here is going to be much more complicated. I actually have to take the entire hub and brake assembly off to take the shock and spindle and actually disconnect the lower control arm from its ball joints. So it's going to be a lot of fun. First thing we're going to do is actually take this center cap out. And I'm not sure if this is a factory thing or not, but someone's welded, I think, a nut on here. And that is to remove this, because I did this on the other side and this was a huge pain in the dick to take off. So you're gonna see I've had to resort to buying an actual slide hammer to do this.
It's pain in the dick day at Speed Academy.
Apparently it is.
What is this medieval contraption, Peter?
Well, it's a slide hammer, and that's supposed to go onto an actual hub. So before you guys chirp me, I know I'm not using this tool right. However, the person that welded that bolt onto the cover there didn't use the right thread for this, which would have been easy to just thread in there. So I'm resorted to using a more archaic method, but it seems to work well, as you will see. There we go. Oh,
just needed some rage, PT.
Damn you, Cap. Damn you.
Why is there an Allen key on your spindle nut, Pete?
Well, of course, Porsche does it differently, and they've designed the spindle nut to be held in place with an Allen bolt. So what you got to do is slide it through this convenient little provision they've made through the hub onto the nut, and the only way I can do it is with a set of vice grips, but you kind of crack it loose. Once it's loose, you can back this off and then slide it out. It should just spin right off, actually.
So is that a lock for the spindle nut?
That's correct. That's correct.
That is some crazy over-engineering right there.
Ooh, we have movement.
Using the rotation of the hub to
That's
loosen
right.
the nut. You're a genius, PT.
Look at me. I should be on Engineering Explained now, right?
Oh, definitely.
Telling everybody how this stuff works.
I believe your version would be lefty loosey, righty tighty. Thought we were doing the suspension, not the brakes, Pete.
Well, believe it or not, the actual brake line is connected to the strut. So we have to take the brakes off. And by brakes, I mean brake line off, which means I'm gonna have to bleed the brakes before I drive this car again.
Oh,
Wonderful, isn't it?
That's fun. What were you thinking, Ferdinand Porsche?
He wasn't. One of his cronies was.
I think he was hammered on some German brew that night.
Maybe. 1987 brake pad sensor. I'm gonna get rid of that because I'm not gonna use it, but you still need to put it on because otherwise it throws a little light. Anyways, now that I've taken off the brake caliper with the hard line, of course, put that aside and take the center hub off here. So, oh,
Shedding more
there's
parts.
the bearing,
there, yeah.
and there's the center hub, and that's what we were getting access to, which is the spindle, and that will of course be replaced as well. So in order to disconnect the strut and spindle from the lower A-arm here, there's one bolt and the pin that actually holds the ball joint in, which I'll show you in a second. But once that's out, we've got to remove the torsion bar in the A-arm, and then we can start putting everything back together. I quickly remove the shield here so you guys can have a better view of me knocking this pin out. There we go. And you can see it's got a shape to where it kind of locks the strut in onto the ball joint. It's almost like a V, a groove, a cut into it.
More German weirdness there for you,
Hey
Pete.
man, I'm just gonna stop asking and questioning the design standards and going with the flow.
Yeah.
Gone ahead and loosened the front, what's a subframe, I guess. Alright, bigger pry bar was all that was needed, and our torsion bar here is out.
Nice.
There you go. Okay, that is loose. So now it's time to actually remove the strut, which means 3 bolts up top, and we can slide this bad boy out. There we go. Our factory strut is out. All that I'm gonna reuse is, I guess you could call this a top hat, because that is gonna go on the KW coilover. I've gone ahead and transferred the sleeve off of the old spindle onto the new KW one. So this is the one thing that you're gonna have to kind of press on and off, but otherwise it's mostly a bolt-on install. I've also transferred the top hat over. So we're down to the final stretch here of getting everything installed. I'm gonna bolt the coilover in, and we should be on the ground sooner than later. Here we go.
It's nice and flush.
Yeah.
After this monstrosity to go on here.
Yeah. And this is actually kind of fun too. Sometimes it slides on, sometimes it doesn't.
How much does that thing weigh?
It's actually quite light.
Is it?
Yeah. But if you ever want to replace the rotors, you got to take everything off again to get at the rotors. It's an old 80s design.
It looks like a wheel spacer, but it's actually not. It's like part of the hub setup.
That's correct. I'm sure some of you are wondering, how do you tighten the actual nut here with the Allen key on it? And according to the Porsche manual, what you want to do is spin this and get rid of pretty much all the play on the washer that's in between this nut and the actual bearing. It may be hard to see, but there you go. The washer is still moving on the inside. So we know we've got proper preload on this. You don't want to have that washer so tight that it doesn't move in there. KW coilovers are installed. Next up, I gotta bleed the brakes and adjust the ride height, and then drop this thing, and we'll see what it looks like, finally.
Pete's loving that ride height adjustment life, huh?
Well, especially with camera and lights in my face, it just works so well.
2 hours into the ride height adjustment, and we're
2 hours later.
2 hours later.
Well, that was a lot more work than I expected. Dave helped out even a little bit too. We got the suspension adjusted to the gentleman low, which is probably not low enough for any of you. It's actually not low enough for me, but the sidewall on my Nitto tires 255 series is just too wide. So if I try to go any lower, it's actually hitting on the fender lip, which means I'm actually going to have to go to a smaller diameter profile on the front. The rears are actually pretty good. I can slam those as much as I want, but right now, we're just gonna leave it as is because winter is coming and sadly this car is gonna get put away. But before we do that, let's go for a quick ride and see how this thing handles now with the new coilover setup. All right, so far the coilovers feel actually really, really good. I'm impressed. I was a little bit nervous because they were competition spec, that they would ride pretty stiff, but actually it's more compliant than the stock suspension. So I am really loving these coilovers right now. They feel good. Oh yeah, back and forth, huh?
yeah, making me nauseous as usual. Yeah, and this is actually a very bumpy road, so
yeah, you can see we're just cruising along here, and it's soaking up the bumps real well.
yeah, it's doing a good job. I'm bouncing around a bit more than the car feels like it is, so I like the ride quality. Your car modified itself, PT.
Yeah,
Look at
it's
that.
like the We didn't go, we went too low and it's not even that low.
Serious rubbish.
Man, oh man.
Damn.
Yeah, that's not good.
Hope you didn't damage your expensive German car.
I don't think I damaged it too much. It just bent a little bit of the fender lip here, but
Oh man.
we'll just have to baby it home. Ugh. Trying to live that low life, man.
It's not easy.
Nope. I feel like this should be a Instagram photo with the car at the gas station. But that's gonna wrap this video up. As you can see, poor decision on the tire choice for me. So it's back to the drawing board. Next year, we're gonna come back with the 911 with a proper set of wheels and tires. We're gonna go a little bit lower, and we're gonna do a bunch of exterior mods and some interior stuff too. All coming up soon enough.
80s audio at its finest right there, everybody.
The guy that owned this car previous was a huge audio guy.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, so there was amps in the back, all this crap was wired in. I've removed like 80% of it. I had to leave those because I think he chopped the actual wires that run to the speakers. He re-ran new wires, you know?
Yeah, look at those wires, Pete.
That's the 80s.
Those are some high quality looking wiring right there. Damn.